host for the session, and I'm really excited to bring together this group of people to talk about a truly inspiring place, Paulet House. It's a beautiful old house in KwaNojoli in the Eastern Cape, which was formerly Somerset East, and it's owned, before he died, it was owned by Professor Jakes Gerwel. It's inspiring because it's a place where stories are born, a place where people bring their passion and imagination and then get down to really hard work. It's a place where many ideas have found form either as novels, short stories, or plays. Guys, we're definitely going to dig into to what it's been like to go to this special place, but we're also going to talk more generally about your creative process. I'm going to ask you about your personal journeys, the ones that you've taken not only to become writers, but to continue as writers. But I'm also going to ask you about what you need to eat to write, how you like to sleep, who you like to talk to, what you need to write with, pages, computers, things like that. So two of the writers, Mia and Barbara, are meeting for the first time here today because they went to Paulet House as seasoned writers on a writer's residency. Was it 3 weeks? When were you guys there? You need your mics. You need to join me.
I think, just over 3 weeks.
Just over 3 weeks.
I was only there for a week.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it was. I wished I could have stayed longer because it's such a special place.
Every time I go, I wish I could stay longer. These two, Sihle and Juliette, I know well from having mentored them. Though those guys don't know each other, they're meeting for the first time today, which is also rather wonderful. When were you guys there? Remind me.
I was there in 2021. Yeah, it was the year of 2021.
And Juliette, you were?
I think 2022 or 23, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the mentoring program, we go up 4 times a year for a weekend. So we go there for these short trips and always envy the people who've been there for 3 weeks. Okay, so now because the audience doesn't know you, I'm going to introduce everybody before I move on to the questions. And we're going to start with Sihle because he's our visitor in Cape Town. He's traveled the furthest to be here from Joburg. Sihle is the author, just please hold it up, Sihle, of the 2022 novel, The Resurrection, which won the South African Literary Awards Sihle Qwabe Special Literary Award in November last year. And was longlisted for the Sunday Times Award. The book is about the dangerous legacy handed down to his family by KZN-born nightclub owner Bantu Zulu. He leaves the Zulu club in Suidoosterfees Township in Joburg to his youngest son, Victor. On the cover, Sfiso Mzobe calls it slick, smart, and scintillating. The Drum magazine calls it a modern-day South African story filled with thrills, danger, and suspense. Ultimately, in the sterling debut, Sihle has written a daring novel filled with passion and suspense, with fresh dialogue to match. Sihle, welcome. I'm looking forward to chatting to everyone about your writing journey.
Thank you so much.
Can you just tell us quickly where you've come from today, how you ended up here right now?
Oh, just today?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm currently at Stellenbosch. I'm doing a residency there, currently working on something exciting. I don't want to say too much, but definitely there's something to look out for on the way.
A writing something.
Definitely.
And then on to Dr. Barbara Boswell, who must surely, of all of us on the stage, that I may be getting it wrong, I think you must have traveled the furthest in your writing life, because I see you lived for many years in the States, where you did a doctorate in gender studies at Maryland University. Barbara released her second novel, The Comrade's Wife, last year. She's an associate professor, head of English literacy studies at the University of Cape Town. Her 2017 novel, Grace, A Story of Domestic Abuse, won the UJ Debut Award for South African Writing in Fiction. And was also longlisted for the Sunday Times Literary Award. Barbara returned to themes of power and abuse in The Comrade's Wife, which follows a turbulent marriage between an academic and a rising politician. It's a finely honed, tightly plotted book, literary fiction that draws the reader in deeply as it explores both intimate love and the place the main character, Anita, is making for herself in the world. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm no longer the head of English.
Oh, sorry about that.
Department,
Thank
just,
you for correcting
Update.
me. Okay. But I'm really interested to learn about how about the places you've been and how your life experience have resulted in ideas that are both subtle and complex, in stories and characters that are tautly crafted, yet deeply engaging on an emotional level. And can you tell us where you've just come from today?
Today,
Yes.
I actually moved house today. I don't know how I managed to double book myself in this way. I came from Muizenberg and I'm moving closer to the city. And I got here in an Uber because I was just too tired to drive after all of that.
Well,
So we are, more metaphorically.
Yeah, kind of like that.
I've just always wanted to write and came to writing quite late in my life. In my mid-40s, I think I published my first book. And so I've been just working on it and I'm trying to make up for the time that I lost earlier.
Well, it's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Mia Arderne is the author of 2 novels. The first is Mermaid Fillet, a carp's novel. Yeah. Published in 2020, that was longlisted for the Sunday Times Literary Award. It's described as an explosively fun crime noir set in the northern suburbs of Cape Town. I haven't read it, but I've read your youth novel, so I think I get a feeling for what they mean. The youth novel, 1,000... I didn't get Barbara to hold up hers. Here's Barbara's. 1,000 Eyes on You is Mia's youth novel, also set in Cape Town. Mia, I loved the way this deeply imaginative story dives so deeply into the wild, emotional places that make up adolescence. And maybe this relates to what Barbara is saying, but at this moment in the world, I think we all feel a little bit like adolescents in a kind of a wildly emotional space. So it really resonated and made a lot of sense. Mia has a master's degree in creative writing from the University of Cape Town, and you work as a journalist with bylines in top South African media. Welcome, Mia. I can't wait to hear about what inspires your imagination and how you create the trail of breadcrumbs that leads us through the forest of words to the story's conclusion. Could you give us a one-liner for this, just to introduce it to the readers? Yeah.
Sure. So 1,000 Eyes on You, it's a YA, and it looks at a depressed teenage girl who inherits a book of spells from her grandmother and then starts to realize that she is not human.
Thank you. So we're just a wildly different group of people. And then Juliette Mnqeta. I have to be honest and admit I'm so excited to be talking to Juliette, not just because I worked with her, but because her novel is the most recently released one. Please hold it up. This baby has only been around since February, so it's the most recent arrival. And as a debut, it's just the freshest thing out there. So congratulations on that, Juliette. Juliette's novel has obviously not had a chance to be longlisted for any awards yet, or win any awards yet, but it's having a very warm reception. Just a taste. Diane De Beer, a reviewer, says, I felt very early on that this was an exceptional voice, and that feeling never dimmed. And Pippa Hudson on Cape Talk says she could not put it down. Welcome, Juliette. I'm longing to hear how your life has been for you since your debut. You're also the most recent arrival in Cape Town. Your book's not only the most recent arrival. So tell us where you've come from.
Well, I was born and raised in Cape Town. Then I got kidnapped by marriage. Some guy sent cows and my dad was like, okay, so I went. So I've been gone for 12 years. Then I've just arrived from PE Way to here on my own. I left the guy with the cows back there, but yeah, it's a crime story in itself. But hey, everything is material. Everything's material.
Thank you. Okay, so now I feel like you know a little bit more about each of the writers. So we're going to start talking about this wonderful place and their creative practice. So I'm going to ask you all to answer the next question. Maybe we can just work from Barbara. And this is just, please give me your first impressions. Can I ask you to tell me where on your personal writing journeys you were when you arrived at Paulet House, how you felt about the writing, and what were you hoping for?
Thank you for, I had just finished The Comrade's Wife, the second novel, and I was just the head of the department then, and I was really quite, it was a very stressful time. I think.
What year was that again?
I think it was 2023 or 2020. I can't remember anymore, but it was just a very busy time, and I felt like I really needed to get away because I needed to complete the edits, and then I was also working on I'm working on my next novel, and I really needed just quiet time to sit and plot and sit with my thoughts. And so to get away I think it was such a blessing for me. I thought the house was really beautiful, and the chef was amazing.
We'll get on to that. Yeah. We'll get on to the chef.
And the food was, it was just so exciting to have food made for you. And and so I was going between these two different modes of finishing one thing and starting to dream, like that dream space when you start to think of a new book and new characters and new people. And then unfortunately work found me at Paulet House and made me zoom in. So I was also working, but it was a beautiful space, and I felt a very spiritual place actually.
Yes, yeah, that kind of crossover space, yeah. Sihle, where were you in your writing journey?
I was still just a kid in my journey at the time. I think, the food, by the way. I still think of it to this day. So it really deserves a special mention. But apart from it, I think Paulet House was very important for me in my journey because at a time, I had the first draft of The Resurrection, but I was just this kid starting out, no education, no background whatsoever where writing books is concerned. So obviously, I would spend so many hours trying to write, sitting at my computer, but there was always this voice at the back of my head just going, man, what are you doing? I mean, when it happened, when I was called into Paulet House, I think for the first time, I was really validated. I started feeling like, okay, so if I am here and I'm around all of these wonderful people, I have this mentor who sits with me, we go through my manuscripts line for line, and we do it for hours, then it must be what I'm doing might really be important. So it was the validation I needed to kick off my journey. So it was very, very helpful.
Well, Sihle, I have to say that scintillating voice that Mzobe noticed was there right from the start. You have a very strong writing voice. But thank you for that. Juliette, where were you in your writing journey when you arrived?
If the Dead Could Talk was my very first manuscript I started writing seriously because of COVID. I mean, I was at home, I couldn't go anywhere, so I started writing it seriously.
It's amazing how helpful COVID was to many creative people.
COVID, yeah. But originally, because of a self-esteem issue, I really thought I would never send it to a publisher. I always thought I'm going to self-publish. I'm not going to break my heart by sending a book out to a publisher and just get regret letters. And a friend of mine looked at it, Mabel, and she was like, give it a chance. I know somebody in Kwela, and she sent it, and I was surprised that they wanted me to go on this course, or not course, but the learnership, what do you call it? Fellowship.
Mentoring programs.
Mentorship,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And, I must say, as she was saying, it's a very spiritual place, and Barbara was saying, spiritual in the sense that emotionally, not religiously spiritual, but it really, you find your tribe there. And I was a new writer, hadn't written anything before, and it was the first time I got validation that you actually can write. Of course, you need to hone your skills and be a lot better, but that's where I was in my writing journey, having no self-confidence, not knowing where I was going in the sense of putting words on paper. But Paulet House, definitely, I found sort of my tribe in the literary world. So that was lovely.
Well, both you and Sihle kind of brought yourselves up as writers. You sort of made yourselves. So I'm glad that ended up being a space where you could meet people. But now, Mia, I'm going to throw the same question at you. Where were you when you came up for your residency in your process?
So I was kind of getting into my second novel, and I don't know how many of you have been there, but starting the second novel is the worst. It just, for me anyway, it was something I really struggled with. And I think what Paulet House did, I also wrote my first novel largely during COVID, and it was a very lonely, kind of harrowing process for me. So being there among other writers felt like quite legitimizing first, because you're just there to write. It doesn't feel like the secondary thing outside your 9 to 5 that you just happen to be doing. It feels okay.
Like
to
there are
do
a whole
your
bunch
craft.
of you being crazy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. So you're not the only ones. More than 160 writers have visited Paulet House. All of them have traveled the road north from Qwabe, past the Dolosa along the coast, up and over mountain passes full of lorries and monkeys, plumbago and honeysuckle, past long dry plains of prickly pears and aloes to arrive at Paulet Street, usually quite late in the afternoon. It's a long drive. Where then everyone is welcomed by Chef Gilbert, given a glass of wine. He's sitting over there. That's Chef Gilbert. Given a glass of wine or a cup of tea and shown to their room. Guys, I'm going to ask you for your first impressions of the space. And again, I'm going to start with Barbara. I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to move this way.
Oh, I thought it was beautiful. I fell in love with it. I was just like, I'm in this enchanted place. I loved the dining room because there's a bookshelf, and I immediately went to look there. And then there's this amazing garden at the back, and also there's the Père de Carcasse or something, or Père de Cascar. I don't know how to say it. But this coach house that was converted into a reading or writing room, and it was the most beautiful sunlit room. And that was my favorite space, I think, because it was so sunny, and I went in winter. So it was really cold, but then I would just sit and bask like a lizard in the sun in that room. It was just amazing. And then the other thing that really made an impression on me, there's a reading room upstairs in the house, and I was kind of just really like empty. I don't know, just depleted. And I was there to try and regenerate my creativity and my energy. And I counted all the honorary doctorates, and I counted 14 on the wall that Professor Gerwel had been conferred on him. And to me, that was just the most incredible space to be in, because as an academic also, I feel like often the academic side of it sort of taps into your creative life if you're creative, and there's always this tussle for me between, I should be doing creative writing, no, I should be doing academic work. And so when I got there, I was like, here is a person whose life was actually dedicated to the project of intellectualism, and not only that, did incredible activism and work in the world. And so it actually is possible to be many different things. And I think that I found that incredibly inspiring, and that's why I felt it was very spiritual, because for me it did something to my spirit. I was actually alone there for the whole time that I was
Oh,
there.
wow.
And so it was really a wonderful space to think and rest and write and be inspired.
Yeah, it's an incredible gift. I mean, you really are very aware that you're being brought into this personal space of this person that he'd set up for writers. It's quite amazing. Sihle, I'm going to move on to you. What were your impressions when you arrived of the physical space?
Thank you, Angela. Obviously, the beauty, it was very beautiful and so different from everything else I've known all of my life. I mean, I'm from Joburg. I grew up in a township, so there's always like this noise and so much happening. So when I arrived at Paulet House, there was something different. I don't know if I can really put this into words, but I will try. It's like everything comes to a standstill, like everything just stops. And all the noise just dies down, and everything is quiet now, so it's just you and your thoughts. So when you're there, I could actually hear that voice in my head now. It's just so clear. I can think clearly. I can move from this point to that point, and then everything just, I don't know, came together magically the moment I stepped inside, because it has that thing about it. It's just so quiet in a very, very peaceful way.
Amazing. Juliette, you?
Yeah, same. I'm just enthralled and listening to everybody speak.
Me too.
And it just feels sort of the same. It was a nice, quiet place to write. When I first got there, when I was growing up, I loved Jane Austen and
I remember this.
I loved Jane Austen and Elizabeth
Well,
Bennet.
Juliet, I'm not surprised.
I always wanted to be an Elizabeth Bennet, to have a Mr. Darcy take me away. So when I got there, I was like, everything was so Victorian. I was like, oh, and even my accent changed. I was like, darling, you know, like. But I was there to write crime, so anyway. But it was great. I do love the quiet, because Sihle was saying, being in a township, townships are very noisy. It's lovely, it's vibey, but it's also very noisy. As you're trying to write, there's always someone playing rap music or kwaito or house music, and you sort of like a popping as you're trying to kill somebody on paper. It doesn't work. But there, it was quiet. I got to think, and of course,
Just trying to think
off-
of this
yeah,
weapon
the
stabbing in time.
No. I've gone past stabbing. I don't stab anymore. But quietness, because writing, you do need some sort of quiet, and because you're working a 9-to-5 job, we don't have those resources, and those 4 days or 3 days at least of resources 4 times a year, that's amazing. And just to think and feel special, and having very nice food. Yeah, I felt like a celebrity.
That's great. Mia, I'm moving on to you, and then.
So, I mean, same. It's so lavish, that place. The gardens, the rooms, everything about it is really opulent. And that's the first thing that I was met with, you know, like, I couldn't really believe that this is where I get to write for a month. I was like, well, I better come up with something good at the end of this. So it was just that idea of you being treated well as a writer, which in South Africa, it's a rare thing, you know. So that's the first thing that struck me about it. It's such an honor to be in a place like this as a writer in this country, you know.
So Mia, I want to stay with you a while. I saw one of the things that some of you have mentioned is the garden in Paulet House and how incredibly beautiful it is. I saw, apart from thanking Gilbert for his conversations, I saw in your acknowledgements that you thanked one of the other people who were there with you, for showing you herbs in the garden. So can you talk a bit about how that fed into your book? And just talk a bit about how that kind of interaction fed your imagination. Because one of the things that really stands out for me is this is imaginative. This is very imaginative writing.
Sure, so I was very lucky to be there alongside Lloyd Souls, who is a poet and an incredible one at that, and just knows a lot of things. He knows about herbs and plants, indigenous knowledge, Khoi mythology. He knows about all that stuff. And the garden in Paulet House is just sprawling. There's lots of stuff in it. So we'd go into the garden and he would tell me about these various herbs and what their kind of magical properties are, if you will, like lavender for respite and rosemary to open the mind, and eucalyptus to help you breathe. And his favorite aloe, which that snotterige gel, as he would call it, for the skin. And he would take these herbs and make tonics and make stuff with him. And, you know, it was really cool to learn from him. You know, he's an older writer. He's taken the time to learn about indigenous knowledge in a way that it was a rare thing. There's a kind of mentorship to that I also really appreciated. And he's got like a lightness of being. A lot of writers, we sit here with our heaviness, you know, or I do anyway. I consider it like quite a heavy craft. Lloyd is not like that at all. It's like a source of joy for him. So it was a very different way to experience writing, you know, through someone who doesn't experience writing as the way you do at all.
Oh, that's lovely. That's such a lovely way to hear about it. And then tell the audience about how I think some of that might have filtered into your book.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of mythology in my book, and I drew on indigenous Khoi mythology as opposed to, you know, drawing from Greek mythology or like a lot of mythology that influences literature over the ages. I wanted to use South African mythology and gods and deities in that process. And Lloyd just had, apart from the magical or mystical qualities of our actual plants, he knew the language surrounding those gods. You know, he had, he just had a lot of knowledge about the language, and that also, it made me feel more confident writing about it, because it's quite difficult to have a deep insight of indigenous mythologies that goes beyond what you can read and research. Like word of mouth is one of the best ways of gaining that knowledge, and he was that source for me in a really big way.
Oh, it sounds like just an amazing kind of coming together of things. I'm going to keep going. KwaNojoli is, everyone's talked about how beautiful it is. It's also a place where you get an immediate sense of history and of South Africa's very troubled history. It's a beautiful town. The Eastern Cape is a place where so much dispossession has happened and is still happening. It's historical in other ways. I remember dragging Juliette around the graveyards in some search of some ancestral graveyard that I had. Yeah, I found some ancestors of mine buried in the graveyards there. But Juliette, if the dead could speak, can you tell the audience, talk a little bit about how South African history intersects with the book that you've written? Where your characters find themselves in terms of South African history, in terms of your plot line?
South African history, well, it's very, not exactly recent, but just Azania was born towards the end of apartheid. But her parents, where they, how they grew up, there is a strong sense of the dynamics in South African history there. But her father is a struggle veteran. Her mother is not. She's perhaps a little bit more religious and not believing so much in politics, which is interesting because, I think sometimes when people think of the history of apartheid, they think, certain races just had to be political. But it was interesting that having these two parents with one child that are sharing a child, one is incredibly political, wants to fight for their rights, and the other is quite happy to accept things as they are, not happy or content, but they're willing to just let things go, which was sort of like how my family background was. You accept things, you don't really challenge them. So that's politically how that is in the book, the political history of her parents. And she, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but she took more of her father's personality, where she wanted to find out things, to question things, and that's why she wanted to find out who had killed her father, as opposed to her mother, because her mother's personality is let things be as they are, and that's why her mother never went into finding out who killed the dad.
So on that note, I'm going to ask you to read. Are we doing okay? Can I Have I got time to give everyone a chance to read? Juliette, I've chosen a section for you to read, just a short one. Mia, I forgot to ask you, but I'm going to come back to you. I've got a section I'd like you to read. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Juliette.
All right, so this is a prologue, just speaking about my main character, Azania, of just describing her background of how she grew up and how different she is from her mother. So I'll begin in this paragraph. On the evening after Azania had discovered the meaning of her name, she waited patiently for Portia to come home from doing a nurse's double shift. As soon as Portia crossed the threshold, Azania blurted out, "Why did you call me Azania?" Portia let her colossal body drop onto the couch. "Molo, baby." "Hi, Mama. So what made you think of the name Azania?" Portia shut her eyes and rubbed the back of her neck. Azania knew it was a cue for her to get up and massage her mother's shoulders. Next, she would have to rub the swollen ankles. She knelt before her mother and applied the herbal camphor cream. Azania had to turn her face away briefly because of the overpowering menthol smell. She repeated the question about her name. "I could have called you Child." "At least Child isn't the name of the country, Mama." "Country?" her mother asked, eyes still closed. "So you didn't know?" Portia clicked her tongue, which sounds like this. Portia clicked her tongue and then shrugged. Azania cleared her throat. "Was it my father who called me Azania then, if it wasn't you?" Silence. Whenever the F word came up, there was always silence. Her mother was a wardrobe of secrets when it came to Azania's absent father. Oh, sure, Azania knew who he was, some big-shot politician and policeman she saw on TV. But he had never visited, never called. And then, of course, Portia had once said nonchalantly, "If it ever pitches up here, dear, you call the police, okay?" Call the police for a policeman? Azania recalled Portia yawning after that. She wasn't sure whether her mother was joking. But not having a dad was okay-ish, in a way. After all, she wasn't the only kid with an absent father. Quite a few children in the neighborhood didn't know where their fathers had disappeared to either. Apparently, a lot of dads in the township stepped out to go buy milk and never came back. Azania guessed political milk was tastier for her father than the township life. Oh well. But she had to admit, it had hurt a little when she was younger. She had not been like other little girls who could point their fathers out in a crowd of men rushing to the taxi rank. She couldn't say, "There he is," when men trotted after vans that would take them to do manual work in the suburbs. And she was the only child who couldn't mimic her mother in saying something nasty about her father to her friends when she saw him drinking away child support money at a tavern. The other little girls were lucky.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I'm going to carry on with this theme of talking about South African history. I'm going to ask all of you to share a bit about how in your writing you share a sense of South African politics or history. And Barbara, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, that's such a layered question.
I know.
So, I mean, one obvious answer, this is a contemporary novel. It's set in the sort of relatively contemporary period of South Africa, and it is, I like to think it's a political novel, though it's been, I think some people, I don't know how it's been classified by people. I don't know. It's also romance. And so it's about a marriage, and what is more political than marriage? but I'm addressing really issues of the nation and contemporary political issues in the last maybe 5 years or 10 years of the democracy. And but I think I try to do it subtly by foregrounding the relationship, the romance, this couple, the man and woman falling in love. The man is a politician, and so very much politics, the contemporary party politics, did inform how I wrote it, and. I read a lot, the many biographies and many like investigative journalists have written, there's a really like almost an industry of books, nonfiction, around state capture, really, and the book is also about that. But you only, it's not very obvious at the beginning. It seems like a light and fluffy romance. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. Sihle, does that question resonate with you at all? If you had to think about South Africa in the past and how it comes through with your characters.
I think when I think about it a bit, I think with me it is more about how it has impacted the setting of the novel, because obviously with everything that has happened, how townships were formed, and then how people came to be the guys who prospered in the townships, the kind of mindsets they had to adopt, things they had to do in order to get ahead with what South Africa once was and still is in some ways. I think in that way, it does resonate with me, the question.
Thank you. And Juliette, I feel I've got you to answer that one already, so I'm going to move on to Mia on that one.
Sure. So I don't think my novel was political in the maybe in the current sense. I did try to bring politics in through my characters, and I kind of interviewed my my mother and my grandmother about their experiences during the Group Areas Act, during the state of emergency, and how their lives were impacted. And so I brought in that knowledge into my characters through kind of investigating my own lineage and what they experienced being evicted, and how that was just from a lived experience level. And that was the way I thought I'd bring politics in. It's really through characters more than through world building in my book.
Yes, and I mean your book's also very much about teenagers trying to find their own power in how they handle a situation, how they reflect on the past and move forward. So that was very, very interesting. Okay, next question. One of the things about traveling somewhere, I think, is that you're so aware that as you travel in the car, you're bringing your whole self. You're bringing, like, your physical self along with you. So your mind and your body. Barbara, you've touched on this a bit, but I wanted to address this particularly to you. You're an academic, and you talked a bit about the split between the romance and the political. You're an academic, but you're writing about the personal. So in terms of your academic work and in terms of your personal work, what is that split like? Is it a split, or do they enhance each other? How do you bring, I often think at Paulet House, you're bringing so much together. You're not just bringing people together, but you're bringing this like awareness of your whole, of so many other people's experience. How do you meld all of that?
It's something that I'm often still thinking about how to do properly. I don't do it very well, but I do think when I have to do both, because otherwise I feel like there's something missing. And so I feel I'm very fortunate that I feel like I have a vocation, which is to teach, and I love to teach. But part of the academic work job also requires you to write. I mean, it doesn't actually really. They don't really care actually. They do, but no one's telling you like, oh, when are you going to publish an academic article again? So there's in my department there's a lot of creative writers, and we're encouraged to do that. So I've veered more towards the creative in the last few years, and but then it's been about 4 years now. And then I start to feel, oh, there's this gap. I want to write something that's not fiction. So I just go with how, I don't know, I'm very like, I write by instinctively, just,
yeah. So you're not coming up with a kind of idea?
No, I don't have a plan, but there's a way in which I'm just feeling how intuitively what I want to do next.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for that. While we're with you, can I ask you to read perhaps the section that I marked? I'm doing this so everyone gets a taste of everyone's beautiful voice.
this is the main character, Anita's voice. I take pride in my academic work, which I often describe as critiquing power. And there is a great deal to critique about the ways in which the liberation movement has moved into power, the corruption, the cronyism, the leap to embrace neoliberal market forces after coming to power on a socialist manifesto. But let's face it, I'm a beneficiary of that power system over and over again. That fact rankles but remains true. I've issued traditional forms of power while lurking at the margins, happy to benefit from the large systematic changes brought about by the movement. Am I a hypocrite to turn my nose up at someone who has not been uncomfortable with power, who has actively sought it and fully inhabits it, who is not afraid to wield it? Tandiswa and Claire unpack the issues with me over mojitos. Does being a politician have to be a deal breaker? What's his overall vibe? I mean, his aura, his light. Do you get good vibes? Is what I would ask myself. Oh my God, Tandiswa, I enthuse. He's attractive, intelligent, witty, charming, a little bit on the soft side, but all in all, a great package. Of course, I'm getting good vibes. They're called pheromones. You of all people should know this. Take a look at his picture again, my friend. Who wouldn't be getting good vibes being around this man? I'm positively vibrating. This is so cheesy.
I love it. I love it because I love the way you bring this very serious.
Tandiswa spits a bit of a drink as she erupts in laughter. Claire pretends to disapprove. You two are going to get us kicked out of yet another fine establishment. Seriously, Anita. She shifts into analysis mode. I know a politician is not your dream man, but it doesn't have to be a deal breaker. Not all politicians are corrupt. Given his credentials and the portfolio committee work, he probably isn't. Maybe he's one of those idealistic souls who believes that he can change things from the inside. Claire leans forward. Him being a politician actually works in your favor. There are probably lots more ways for you to check his bona fides than just your regular Joe. There's a lot of information in the public domain. Never mind Hansard, check his annual parliamentary declaration of interests. He's got to list all business interests and gifts there. You could learn a lot about him through those channels, at least professionally. Oh, you've got to be kidding, I scream, imagining myself turning into a detective, sniffing out his business on the internet. Quite a romantic start to a relationship.
I love it. Thank you. One of the things I also want to talk to you guys about is your physical writing process. Sihle, can I ask you to share some of your process? How stories come to you? I mean, you were talking about it being nice and quiet and you can hear the voice coming to you, but just physically, how do you like to write your stories? What do you need to write a story? And how did the idea for the resurrection come to you?
Okay, thank you, Angela. No, obviously, the stories, firstly, it's this voice. Like, I don't know how to describe it, I'll try. I just, I get this idea, right? I have something in my head, and then it just bugs me. Like, it bothers me for a while. And then I just let it simmer a bit, and then it grows, and then as soon as it is something that is tangible enough, I start pulling at the threads. Firstly, when I write, I buy exercise books. I will get perhaps 2 or 3, I don't know, and then I use pens. So I'll write the entire thing with a black pen. That's how I start.
That's amazing.
And then as soon as I'm done with the black pen, I get a red pen. I go through everything I just wrote, and then obviously I'll add a bit there, remove something over there, and then as soon as I'm done with that process, now I have the entire manuscript, but it is on paper. And then it starts, the actual starts. Because normally what I do is, especially like right now, I'm currently in between jobs, so I have more time to write. So what I do is, I wake up in the morning as if I'm actually going to work, and then I sit at my desk. I work for as long as I can. Like, the only thing I do in the process, it is cigarettes. I really smoke a lot. That is the only exception. But I do not move from the desk until I can feel my brain has really, really been depleted. And then as soon as that is over, I will relax, give myself like, I also love comedy. I find it really, really helps.
Yeah.
So you write for as long as you can, and then you get an episode or two, watch a sitcom, and then get back to your desk, and then I just keep going until I'm really done. By the time I go to bed, it's like I was in a fight or something. I'm done. That's the only way I can sleep.
So read us a section, and we want to hear the results of this labor. Read
Of course. Of course. Let us see. Okay, so the section goes, the bounces next to the stairs did not frisk them either. They made their way to the second level. Up here, the music was soulful and relaxing. The bartenders dressed formally. The men kept their pants on their waists, and the ladies wore their dresses long and hair even longer. The tables were spotless. They were covered with tablecloths of cognac brands. The glasses and bottles on top of them complemented the decor. Fana led Victor to the balcony. They looked down at the outside parking lots. It had filled up in the last couple of minutes. A short man came to them, shuffling briskly. When he came closer, Victor saw that he had a hard face and red, bulging eyes. Fana, he said, you've come to see how a real club's run. The man chortled to himself. No, Joseph, I just want you to meet someone, Fana said. Brajo looked at Victor. He's Hector the Don's younger brother. Name's Victor. He's the new Don now, the way I see it. So you can stop bothering me about buying the club now, okay? He's the man to talk to. What was this? Victor had thought that Fana was the one interested in buying the club. And it really does look like him, Joe said, shifting Victor's mind from Fana. Judging by his face, the words had left a bitter taste in Joseph's mouth. Will he be selling the club? Brajo asked Victor. I don't know, Joseph. He speaks, you know. You could ask him yourself. Young man, Brajo said to Victor, I've been telling this fool here to sell me the Zulu club for about a year now. You look like a smart kid. I'm sure you'll do the right thing. What game was Fana playing at? Victor had no way to guess. Not with those eyes on him. Why would you want to buy that club? It's not doing well. It can do better than this one once I work my magic on it. It has the best location for this kind of business. It's in the center of everything. Give it a revamp, and voila. Fana was smiling. Victor focused on Brajo and said, the club's not for sale. See what I've been telling you? The club's not for sale, Josephine. Fana added. Brajo moved his tongue around his mouth and said, everything's for sale to the right customer.
Thank you, Sihle.
Of course.
Can I start here with you guys? I think there's enough time for me to come back and ask you to read a section. But before I do that, I just want to ask you all to just quickly say a little about the physical process of writing. Like, how do you write? Like Sihle answered, is it a red pen and a black pen, or is it a computer? What do you need? You go first.
Sure. It's actually been two very different processes. In my first novel, I wrote in a very solitary space. I told nobody what I was writing. I used like quite a lot of like big papers pasted on my walls for like the bigger plot lines, the bigger characters. And then it's document upon document upon. I'm one of those people who's like, okay, edited version 3.1.6. Like by the end, it's very messy because I'm scared of losing a thing that I want to go back to. And in this latest novel, instead of being so solitary, I spoke to people, Chef Gilbert in particular. I would come to him lamenting about, I only wrote 531 words, I'm stuck at this place. And he'd be like, so tell me, how's it going with Tyler? Tyler's a character who Chef Gilbert really helped me a lot with. And he would ask, what's going on with this one? And then you would have ideas. And it was actually such a helpful process to write without being so insular. So a lot of my writing happened in dialogue, with this latest one, which was a very new process for me.
Oh, wonderful. Juliette, I know you haven't started your second one really, but anyway, tell us physically how you write.
I'm a typist, so I love, the typing everything out. But the very first, when the idea comes, I never write it on paper, the actual manuscript, but the idea, I do use pen and paper, and I draw a mind map, because I like to plan the crime first. So I kill people on paper. I always tell people, and they think it's a joke. It's not a joke. I really kill them on paper. And then, so I think of who committed the murder, why, and then I planned backwards. Once I got that written out in my doctor's handwriting, then I start typing. And it's nice because sometimes I bounce the ideas off my hubby, and he's always got these crazy ideas. He's like, in your next one, you must have like a step twin who has like a bubble gum machine making movement or whatever, something that just doesn't, and he didn't realize he had one kidney or whatever, and he's the killer. So bouncing off ideas with him as well also helps us. I'm writing out who the murderer is.
I would imagine you have enough ideas in your head without needing his ideas too. And Barbara, how do you write physically?
Weirdly, because I have to write with a blue pen. And must be a fountain pen, and I've got a particular type color ink that only that ink will do. And I tried purple, and
I want to ask so many more questions.
And so, but my fiction I write by hand I got arthritis in my hand from writing too much, so that's one of the problems. But my academic work I write on a laptop, so I type it out. But with fiction, so the typing it over is then a form of editing. And so that's the books. I have all these the notebooks that I write in, and I love that process. I sit in bed and I have a very big ginger cat. He always sits with me when I write, and he's like this. He's my internal critic, sitting there because he's got this really disapproving face. But and I have to write very early in the morning, so I get up really at an ungodly hour to write, and then I go to work at around 7. Yeah.
Oh wow, that must be ungodly. 4:30. Wow. Well, thank you for that. I know we have to be quick, but Mia, please, would you read us a section? I've chosen one for you, just to give us a taste of your writing to all the readers, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Oh, sorry, the light's quite
Right, okay. Kwela had succumbed to bed rotting again, the sticky, dark warmth of inaction, cueing her favorite series reruns for low-frequency background noise, the comfort of the familiar as she sank into stagnation. The long weekend let her shut out the whole world, with nothing to force her to leave her room. She doom-scrolled without responding to messages. She hadn't showered for 3 days. She hadn't brushed her teeth in 2. Her room was a mess of rising heaps of dirty clothing. Determined to keep her date with Ryder, she dragged on a tracksuit, sprayed Chanel onto her unwashed skin, and ordered an Uber. Kwela walked up to Ryder's door with a strategy, a monologue prepared. All her unexpressed hurt twisted into sardonic one-liners. Her plan was to savor every moment of revenge, to make the girl fall deeper in love and then break her heart in return. She wanted to see the tables turn and watch karma manifest in real time. Die wiel draai. Kwela told herself as Ryder opened the door, the wheel turns. But as soon as Ryder opened the door, her face radiant, Kwela's plan dissolved. With one smile, Ryder disarmed her. All Kwela's defenses dropped. You wrecked my life, she said in a moment of unintended honesty. Kwela wanted her power back, but she faltered, bulldozed by her emotions. I know, Ryder replied. I'm sorry. I wish I hadn't. I'm just so sorry. Her voice was thick with remorse. Kwela could hear it in her tone. She could see it in the angle of her body. Kwela wanted to fight, but she couldn't. She looked at Ryder's open face, her wide, imploring eyes, and was floored by her beauty. Kwela dropped her shoulders and opened her palms. You can wreck it again if you want, she said. Kwela needed the endorphins, the immersion, the familiarity of a love she knew. Anything to take herself away from her flatlining mind. But when Kwela left Ryder's house, she left without herself. The distraction had helped for a brief moment. Shrugging into the same At home, she went right back to bed rotting, shrugging into the same oversized T-shirt she'd worn for days. Her father knocked and then came into her room. It's Ryder, isn't it? Kwela looked up at him. The person who ghosted you. Kwela nodded. Of course he'd figured it out. Obviously, she can't sleep over anymore, her father said. Kwela, I don't care who you love, as long as they treat you well. And right now, it doesn't seem like that's what she's doing. Kwela hung her head, unsure whether she wanted to smile or cry. It's not about her, she said. I'm just not coping. Her father looked at the mess, the heaps of clothing strewn across the floor, the rumpled bed she hadn't left for hours. I know, he said. I'm here, and you know where to find me. He left her room again after kissing the top of her head.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful writing. So I have so many more questions, but we've run out of time. So do you guys have any questions? Are there any questions from the floor? Okay, Theo, are we done? Do you guys have questions for each other? Go ahead.
Mia, when is the sequel happening? And this is the worst question to ask to a writer, but I'm dying to read the next one.
Barbara, I don't know. I've started working on it. I have a skeleton. I have the plot points, but I haven't gotten the meat of it. I think I might need to go back to do the rest. So I don't know. The short answer is.
No, it's lovely. Well, thank you all. That was really wonderful. I really enjoyed talking to you. I really wish we could all be at Paulet House together, having a meal that Gilbert's cooked and spending the rest of the evening together. But thank you for coming along and sharing the stage. And thank you all for being part of it.